Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup, and of course got boxing and MMA news. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. Sorry if I look or maybe say stuff a little bit strange today. Feeling a little bit under the weather. I hope my voice isn't too bad, but I'm still here making this video for you because it's been an exciting week and I wanted to come and talk about it. And so to start off with the boxing news, Ben has been reinstated into the WBA World Rankings. Box Nation has returned. It's doing like interviews now, as well as like putting kind of low-level small shows on their channel as well, which is nice to see. Itoma has teamed up with Smith. Matevosian versus Lima. Advik versus Meiser, and Aliha versus Sek will fight April 6th. Reeves has retired. It's a fighter who I've had the pleasure of speaking to on this channel. I always kind of said that I would go down to his gym one day, but unfortunately it seems like that isn't the case. But a great fighter, and had been in some top level kind of domestic fights and was great in that boxer tournament, and it was a real nice person, and you could see that. And it's sad to see him retire, but you can't really kind of fault the man, really. Like he said, if you can't give 100%, then there's no point really doing it. Nicholson versus Mahfoud, Yafai versus Mauro, and Castro versus Montoya will fight April 6th. Garcia and Walker have joined Top Rank. Garcia will fight March 29th. McCaskill is set to fight Price April 20th. That is an interesting fight, to be completely honest. I mean, I don't think it's going to be for a world. Well, I suppose it'll be for McCaskill's world title, but yeah, I mean, if you think about the last fight versus Sandy Ryan, it's sad to not see the rematch for that. But she didn't look good in that McCaskill, and so you'd like to think that the kind of maybe top level McCaskill might be gone now, and I think somebody who is as good as Price might be able to expose that. McCrory will fight Carlson March 15th. McGregor wants to fight Diaz again in September, and Pacquiao in boxing in December. I don't know if I should have put this as MMA or boxing news, to be completely honest. The Diaz one, I believe, will be in MMA. It could be in boxing, but then the Pacquiao one being in boxing. McGregor, I don't know what's ever going to go on with him, but he's always about, and same with Pacquiao, they're always kind of about in Saudi Arabia wanting to make fights happen, so, we'll see if they ever actually do come to anything. Inoue versus Neri, Inoue versus Ishida, Akui versus Kuwahara, and Maloney versus Takai will fight on May 6th. That card is now shaped up to be an amazingly good card, and I'm very excited for that. Cameron will fight March 23rd. The Croft twins have teamed up with Crawler. Adomo will fight Walters March 27th. Fury wants to rematch Paul next, that being Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. Tellez versus Jackson, Aguilar versus Rios 2, and Rivera versus Perez will fight April 26th. Rocha, Sandoval, and Canas will fight March 30th. Paul will fight Tyson July 20th. That was a very big bit of news from this week. Like I say, a lot of things that happened this week, but that was kind of the main starting early bit of news for this week. Obviously, Paul versus Tyson. It's an interesting fight. To get my opinions on it, Paul, I think he could have a possible chance. I don't really want to see the fight, to be completely honest. Tyson, I believe he's 57, and we've seen recently Razor Ruddock fight, who was, I believe, 57 as well, and he looked really poor. Obviously, they're from kind of the same era. Obviously, Tyson looks better, like now, but that's on pads, and I feel like if he throws one of them kind of iconic flurries that he throws, then I think other than that, he's going to be really tired and not be able to really do much, and he could probably throw it at once, possibly twice, and then not be able to do much else. And when I go off the fight which Tyson had against Roy Jones Jr. at the exhibition a few years ago, it wasn't really the most entertaining of fights. It was quite a slow fight. They did end up both getting knackered by the end, and I feel like that could happen here as well. And I'd imagine there's going to be some interesting rules on this as well. And yeah, the fact that Tyson is the age that he is, possibly if Paul catches him with one shot, you don't really know how good Tyson's chin's going to be at the age of what he is. But I think this isn't really a necessary fight which Tyson should have taken, and I respect him and his love for boxing, but yeah, like I say, it's to an extent, if he loses this badly, then it could taint a little bit of his legacy, to be fair. But it's an interesting one, I suppose, and I'm sure everybody will be tuning into it, and I probably will be as well. But like I say, it's an interesting one. A good fight. Canelo will fight Munguia May 4th. That's been announced this week. That's a good fight. Obviously, everybody wants it to be Benavidez, and we haven't got that, unfortunately. But Munguia, out of the options he probably had, I think Crawford, I don't really know how much I would have wanted the Crawford fight. Obviously, there's a huge weight gap between the two of them. Berlanga, I really didn't think that fight was one that I'm excited to be made. The Charlo one didn't really seem like it was really on paper. And the Munguia one, it's not a bad fight. Munguia's coming off an impressive victory against that of Ryder, and a victory better than that of Canelo's, and he's built himself up, and obviously he probably hasn't fought anywhere near the level of opposition than that of Canelo, and so it's a big step up for Munguia, but a good fight nonetheless, and it's good to see both of the fighters, especially that of Canelo, fighting again. White will fight Hammer March 17th, so that is next weekend. Crawford has agreed to fight to Eubank Jr. in the summer. That's an interesting fight as well. Another thing which is strange from this week of boxing, it's a very unpredictable week of boxing in general, and yeah, Crawford agreeing to fight Eubank Jr., a fight which I don't really think anybody wants to see. I don't know how much Eubank Jr. necessarily deserves this shot, but it's a big name if you're looking at Crawford only really wanting to fight big names, and I suppose Eubank Jr., it's not like he doesn't fully deserve it. He is coming off an impressive victory, but like I said, I don't know how much Crawford's going to be able to get himself up for this type of a fight. Lemon versus Laws and Machado versus Mahapasi will fight April 12th. IBF avoided Nonchinga versus Araneta. Fury won via points versus Svag. And Mayuth won via points versus Floors. Nowitzki won via KO in round 3 versus Torres. Green won via TKO in round 1 versus McGann. Chamberlain won via TKO in round 4 versus Gwynn to become WBA Intercontinental Lightweight Champion. Huni won via unanimous decision versus Lorena to become WBO Global Heavyweight Champion. Parker won via majority decision versus Zhang to become WBO Interim World Heavyweight Champion. Madrimov won via TKO in round 5 versus Kurbanov to become WBA World Super Welterweight Champion. Vargas drew versus Ball. And Joshua won via KO in round 2 versus Ngannou. And to speak about that card and the great card that it was, we'll start off, Fury obviously getting a points victory. Good to see him, I suppose, fighting, but it's a comfortable points victory against not really too big of an opponent, so nothing too big for him yet. Nowitzki was an interesting stoppage. I mean, it was a good stoppage, but he didn't really look anything crazily good, I don't think. And he took his time nicely, and he didn't rush it, and he looked a bit more technical than some heavyweights which I've seen. But, I don't think it's anything too crazy yet. Green, it was sad to see him again get stopped the way it was. Fair play to Green. Great shot that he landed. Like I say, it was sad to see from McGann, who we have had on the channel, I've pleasure to speak to, and he was building himself up very nicely. I'm sure he's going to be back. When you have that kind of shot which you take, it will knock confidence a lot, and it will make you question yourself a bit, but it's definitely something which you can rebuild upon. And when you kind of just think it is just one shot, at the end of the day it is boxing, and you're gonna have to be aware for shots like that. Just any fight can happen, and so it's not really like he's been outclassed or outskilled or anything like that. So there is room for him to rebuild there. Chamberlain, shutout victory versus Gwynn. Very impressive from him, and did show the levels, and impressive. Huni, it was an interesting fight. I mean, he did get hurt quite badly. Lorena, yet again, hurting an opponent and not being able to get him out there. First time it was Dubois, now Huni. And, a bit unfortunate. Possibly if the fight goes a little bit longer, then he does stop him. But nonetheless, Huni managed to just about scrape that decision in the end. Parker Zhang was a very entertaining fight as well. Zhang, he did get outworked, I suppose, in the end, and you kind of expected that to happen. But he also did, of course, drop Parker twice, and he was the one with the more powerful, better shots. But Parker was just outworking him. Did pretty much similar to what he did against that in the Wilder fight, and his team, his coach, is doing an amazing job with him at the moment, and things are going really well for him at the moment. I think he did deserve that decision victory, and Yeah, in the end, like I say, even with the 2 knockdowns, he was just outworking him for every single round, even the rounds which he was getting caught with the occasional shot with, and it was just too much for Zhang in the end. And I know I feel like Zhang's definitely still going to have that kind of big fights there on the table for him. He probably will fight a big fights soon. But Parker, yet again progressing on. And the heavyweight division at the moment is interesting now. I'll speak a bit more about it in just a moment. Madrimov, though, impressive stoppage versus Kurbanov. I got the Parker one right, I forgot to say. Madrimov, I got this one right as well, but I didn't think he'd be able to get a stoppage. I thought it'd be a very entertaining kind of back and forth type fight. But Madrimov, fair play to him, getting a big stoppage win versus Kurbanov, really kind of showing his amateur pedigree and the experience he has and the ability that he has. And yeah, it was unexpected, but the power definitely is there from him. Vargas draw versus Ball. I mean, I got the prediction wrong. I'm never really going to predict a draw, but Ball, in my opinion, probably did do enough to win that fight. Like I mentioned in my prediction, he was going to be explosive, he was going to be powerful, and he was going to be wanting to close the range, and that's what he does in every fight. But I also didn't think that Vargas would be able to deal with him. He dealt with him at times alright. I mean, some of the body shots he was landing was nice, and some of the work he was doing was good, but Ball, I mean, he dropped him, I believe, twice, and he definitely did land the better shots. He wasn't really able to do too much of his work in close. The ref was cutting it off quite a lot, but I definitely think he did do enough to win rounds, and I just don't feel like the ref was allowing him to do his work, and it did look a little bit messier, but he was the one that was, in my opinion, landing the better shots, and of course he did manage to get 2 knockdowns as well. And then Joshua, I mean, a huge knockout victory versus Ngannou. I got my prediction. I mean, I got it right, but wrong at the same time. I said it would go to the decision. I don't think anybody expected Joshua to be able to do that to Ngannou. Ngannou had been looking so kind of indestructible in the way of his chin and everything like that. And the way that Joshua would be able to dispatch of him. And, there was some big boxing errors that Ngannou was making, and he switched to southpaw and just walked onto shots, and he was lunging in with his jab, and Joshua could see that. And from the level in which Joshua is at, you expect a boxer like that to be able to land shots when you see openings like that. But with the power and the timing and the accuracy that he was landing it with, it shows that level of Joshua's skill to be that of higher than a lot of top level fighters. And he definitely has made Fury look a little bit, silly to an extent. But Joshua has, I suppose if you put it as Joshua has been able to see a little bit more of Ngannou. I think Ngannou boxed a bit differently, probably didn't come in with the best of game plans, probably should have boxed a bit more like he did against Fury, but he was a bit of a still similar kind of aspects of what he did against Fury was shown from Ngannou, and he came in as a bit less of an unknown, and it was seen as a little bit more of an even fight. In the Fury one, everybody was expecting Fury to be able to get him out of there easily, and he didn't. And there was a lot of pressure on him there to do that. And I think Fury was that of kind of lackadaisical and not really wanting to push it because he thought he'd be able to do it with ease. And when he did get started himself, he was very much just like, I'm going to go on the back foot here. But Joshua kind of knew what to expect a little bit more and didn't have quite as much pressure on him as that of what Fury did. And he still, all credit to him, amazing stoppage and probably one of the best heavyweight stoppages I've seen in a while. And of course, now the heavyweight scene is interesting. I'd imagine he's going to want to keep active Joshua. He has been so far, and if he's waiting for Fury Usyk, he's going to be waiting a while. There's 2 fights there, and if you think about it, it probably won't be till, if we do get the fight at the end of this year, possibly early next year, if we do get that fight for Joshua versus the winner of Fury Usyk. So we kind of have to look at other options for Joshua. Hrgovic still on the table. Don't really know how much necessarily Hrgovic wants to fight. Parker, the rematch, it's a good fight, but I don't know if realistically that's a fight which can be made and sold and branded nicely. Zhang is still a fight on paper, could be made. Is a little bit something different, possibly could be made, but of course he's coming off the loss as well. The Wilder fight could be made, but he's coming off of a loss as well, and it won't be sold quite as impressive as it was before, and there'll be a lot more. People just expect Joshua to be able to win that one. So it's interesting. I don't necessarily know who's going to be the option. I mean, there's other fighters like Daniel Dubois. You never know. But like I said, I don't necessarily know who Joshua could be fighting if he wants to keep active. Possibly even Dillian White if he goes through and wins this week. But there is options there. But for the moment, huge victory. Fair play to him. Moving on, Nizard won via unanimous decision versus Yasin. Jakitov won via KO in round 1 versus Jevicki. Buchamp drew versus Ubertil. Devingnod won via unanimous decision versus Whaley. Diallo won via TKO round 4 versus Mohamedi. Lele Sajo won via TKO in round 8 versus Di Carolis to remain EBU European Super Middleweight Champion. Robio won via TKO round 2 versus Gonzalez. Mathieu won via TKO round 2 versus Fiala. Slanov won via TKO round 3 versus Palmer. Santana won via TKO round 2 versus Garcia. Unal won via unanimous decision versus Galova. Lepage Joannis won via split decision versus Vidal to become WBC World Heavyweight Champion. Butler won via KO in round 2 versus Rolls. Iglesias won via KO in round 1 versus Coqueres. And to speak a bit about that card, I did my prediction, of course, for the Lepage Joannis fight. I got the prediction right. I said it would be a decision win. Split decision though, it was a very close fight. It was an entertaining one, back and forth contest. They both came to fight. They both were throwing it down. Possible people saying that Vidal deserved to win. From what I've seen, it looked like it was a very close fight. Lepage Joannis showed boxing skills that she has. I think she showed a little bit better head movement in the earlier rounds and a little bit better movement, but Vidal was landing some cleaner shots. Lepage Joannis was also landing her clean shots as well, and by the end rounds it was quite a back and forth contest, and it was definitely worthy of that of a heavyweight title or just a world title in general, and it was entertaining. Congrats to Lepage Joannis. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch, but like I mentioned, there's a couple of other fights on the table that could be made. Butler, impressive victory for him versus Rolls, to be fair. I mean, nobody really expected him to go get a stoppage, but shows to an extent he still got it there. And Iglesias, round 1 stoppage. It was an interesting stoppage. It wasn't really seemingly the hardest of shots that he caught Coqueres with, and Coqueres just didn't really seem to want it. And I mean, fair play to him. Iglesias is a big figure, a very imposing figure, and he's quite a scary figure to be in with. And he was clearly going to be the better boxer out of the two and was looking impressive in that first round, and of course managed to pick his shot. I don't necessarily know how big the shot was. It didn't look necessarily that big when he landed it, but of course I'm not the one taking the shot, and it's impressive from Iglesias. He's now done what Pacheco couldn't really do. Pacheco did it into the later rounds, but Iglesias did it in the first round, so fair play to him, and I believe he does have a big, bright future ahead of him, and hopefully he can keep progressing into fighting tougher and tougher opponents. Moving on, Kaneko won via points versus Hudson. Goldsmith won via TKO in round 2 versus Mamedov. Melvin won via points versus Myrena. Wilson Bent drew versus Smith. Berry won via points versus Dolores. Quartermain won via stoppage in round 4 versus Rat to become IBF European Super Featherweight Champion. And to speak about that card, obviously sad to see Hudson not getting the David victory that she was hoping for. I spoke to pretty much all these fighters which I'm talked about here, and there's a couple of other fights on the card which I've not mentioned here, but it was a stacked card and a lot of fights that were being made. Sad to see, like I mentioned, Hudson not getting the victory, but sure she's going to learn a lot from it. Goldsmith, impressive victory versus Mamedov. Mamedov, a little bit of a... He looked like he was there to scrap, but then he also didn't really seem to want it as soon as the head clash came in, which he very much kind of instigated himself, and then Goldsmith pretty much had easy work to do whatever he wanted then. But fair play to him, he sold a lot of tickets, and 700 odd tickets in a small hall type show. Congrats to him and credit to him, and not many fighters can do that. Melvin, points versus Myrena. I mean, he change of opponent for him, and he still looked very impressive. Very comfortable victory for him, but also clean, nice boxing, and outboxed him, outclassed him. That's what you want to see against these type journeyman type opponents. Wilson Bent drew versus Smith. It was a scrappy contest, to be fair. Wilson Bent not at his best, and you have to think how possible many more big fights does Wilson Bent have left if he's drawing against somebody like Smith here. But Smith, he came in with an unorthodox game plan and looked unorthodox in his style in general, and there's definitely stuff which Smith's got to learn, but he's done enough to make it difficult for Wilson Bent, and of course did get the draw in the end. Berry, points versus Dolores. great performance from Berry. Completely, outworks him like you expect him to do. He looks like a great prospect, and I'm really excited for the future that he has. And yeah, I feel like he's just going to be in lots of entertaining fights. And Quartermain, great stoppage versus Rat, comfortable performance and an impressive boxing display where he moved very nicely, and frustrated Rat got him out of there in the end, and it was nice to see. And of course, getting the title for him, congrats to him. Queensbury wants Alim Naknulli versus Shiraz next, and Joyce has called out Parker. And yeah, that is it for the boxing news. Moving on now to the MMA news. Myers will fight Machado April 27th. Rodriguez won via unanimous decision versus Moraes to remain one championship atomweight Muay Thai world champion. Fatih Ajar won via unanimous decision versus Todd to become one championship atomweight kickboxing world champion, and Todd has then retired. Very, very entertaining fight. I feel like these kickboxing fights very much get overlooked, but a very entertaining fight. And yeah, in general, congrats to Fatih Ajar. And in the end, I mean, the knockdown that she did end up getting versus Todd into the last round, it was a very nice kind of counter shot, but she didn't really have to do much because Todd was off balance. She pretty much just had to land a shot, and she did that. And yeah, very much back and forth contest, very entertaining. And yeah, fair play to Fatih Ajar. Moving on, Nikolai will rematch Cape April 27th. Jan Jacek has been inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, very much deserved. Moicano will fight Turner April 13th. Wood won via decision versus Moroz. Albayev won via decision versus Vergara. Despaigne won via KO and Randall versus Parisian. Pereira won via submission round 1 versus Oleg Siezhuk. Linz won via decision versus Kutalaba. Phillips won via decision versus Munoz. Gamrot won via decision versus Dos Anjos. Barber won via decision versus Chukagian. Blades won via KO in round 2 versus Almeida. Yarn won via decision versus Yudong. Madalena won via KO in round 3 versus Burns. Page won via decision versus Holland. Poirier won via KO in round 2 versus Saint Denis. And O'Malley won via decision versus Vera to remain UFC Bantamweight champion. And like I mentioned in my prediction, stacked UFC 299 card. And to speak about a couple of the fights which I want to speak about, Pereira, great to see him back winning ways. Sad to see Munoz though, decision loss. I don't really know how much left there is left for Munoz on his UFC career. Gamrot, an interesting decision. I mean, it wasn't the most entertaining of fights, but he does what you have to do in the end. And Dos Anjos is a tough fighter, but also another fighter which I don't know how long he's got left in the UFC. A legend of a fighter, but like I say, they're on the latter stages of their career. Blades kind of stopping that hype train of Almeida. I'm very surprised that wasn't in the main event, to be completely honest. It shows how stacked UFC 299 was. But Blades completely shut out Almeida in the end. And yeah, Almeida, who on paper isn't seen as the most exciting of heavyweights either, but it was causing a lot of problems for the top level. And in the end, he's suffered quite a bad defeat there, and he's going to have to rebuild. And Blades has rebuilt himself and possibly is in the space to possibly contain again or to challenge against Aspinall again. Yarn, decision versus Yudong. Great to see Yarn back win, in my opinion. He is a very entertaining fighter. He knows how to make a fight entertaining, and it was a very entertaining fight against Yudong again. And he knows what he has to do to win 3-round fights against opponents who want to make it a fight and are willing to make it a fight. And he done that again there. Madalena, I mean, he was pretty much losing the whole of the fight until he landed that very nicely timed. He got off the ground, saw that Burns was going to go for the takedown again, went for the beautiful knee which he landed, and it was an impressive stoppage. And credit to him, like I say, he probably wasn't winning the whole fight, or really I had him 2 rounds down, but in the end, of course, he managed to get a stoppage, and that's all that matters. And now he's in the welterweight top 5 rankings, and he's about it now. Page, decision versus Holland. It was an impressive performance from him. Even at the age of 36, people weren't too sure if he had it in him to be able to go and fight in the top rankings of the UFC, and he's gone and he's made it entertaining. He's boxed how he fights how he normally fights, and he's still managed to win, and managed to win in quite an impressive fashion with the unorthodox striking that he always has. And yeah, congrats to him, and it's somebody who is a credit to have in the UFC. Poirier, it was entertaining to watch him just try and go for the guillotine over and over again, but he managed to stop Saint Denis. I got my prediction wrong for that one. I thought that he would lose that one, to be completely honest. I thought Saint Denis would be able to outwork him, but Saint Denis just standing and trading, you can't do that versus Poirier. I said that in my prediction that he might do that, and he did in the end, and Poirier landed the better shot in the end, and when he wasn't trying to go for a guillotine, he managed to get the stoppage, and so congrats to Poirier. Now he's calling out Makhachev. I think he probably will lose to Makhachev, but it's a fight which could definitely be made, and probably will be made next. And O'Malley, great decision victory versus Vera. I got my prediction wrong for it. I thought Vera would try and take O'Malley to the ground a little bit more, but he wanted to be that up there standing striking, which is credit to him. But even though he has a great chin and took a lot of shots, O'Malley was just outboxing him and doing nice clean boxing, a lot of good head movements, and still keeping his chin in the air a little bit too much than what I like at times, but still nice clean fighting. And he was unlucky to not get the stoppage in the end, but yeah, he now went to go on to call out to Poirier. Poirier then said, you need to go fight Merab, and hopefully the Merab versus O'Malley fight is next, because it's the fight which everybody wants, and it's a fight which personally I am wanting so much. It's one of the fights which I'm most excited for in the UFC. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed. Like the video, subscribe if you are new, and thanks for watching.